Hey, how's it going? How you doing out there? Welcome to the morning warm-up, and good afternoon. It's morning somewhere, just not here. How you doing today? I'm doing okay. Holding up. Hopefully, just like the rest of you guys. This is issue number 9. I'm becoming a pro. I can just go boom, and I know which side it is. For me, this is social distancing day 33. I might be losing count, but I'm pretty sure it's 33. What about you? How many days for you? You've been sort of taking care of those around you, thinking about those around you. I know I certainly am. So as I said last episode, and by the way, I apologize for last episode. We had some technical glitches. I think I might have hit something wrong on this application that caused it to overload, whatever it may be. The feed just got overloaded and it kept cutting off. So hopefully I don't hit whatever the mystery button was that I hit, and we could actually have a technologically foolproof broadcast. But again, I think that's kind of part of the charm of the show, is the fact that I'm so incredibly inept at this stuff. So feel free to laugh at me, because I'm certainly crying in the background, but go ahead, laugh anyway. It's okay. So hey gang, again, thank you so much for joining me. It's really a pleasure to do this. And hopefully, as this stuff winds down, maybe there's no purpose for this show, or maybe you're liking it anyway. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, hopefully I'm helping distract a portion of your day. It certainly distracts a large portion of my day getting ready for the show. And thank you for all the people that have been repeat viewers, who've come back again and again. For anybody who's new out there who doesn't know who I am Joe Quesada. I'm a writer and artist. I've been at Marvel for about 20 years now, actually. It's coming up on 20 years. I was an editor-in-chief of Marvel for 10 years, then chief creative officer, and now executive vice president. I have to look it up sometimes because I forget. Executive vice president and creative director. Basically, I make up stories for a living. That's what I do for Marvel. It's a dream job, and it's always been a dream job for me. So thank you for joining me. I know we have people that are joining me from all over the world, and a lot that are watching afterwards because of the time differences and stuff like that, and just the times that are put upon your days. So thank you. And as you see, the graphic is here, right? Marvel.com, love comic shops. That's there for a reason. We're trying to support our retailers. It's a really tough time, not just for comic retailers, but small businesses everywhere, big businesses everywhere. Marvel's being affected. We're all hunkering down and doing the best we can and tightening our belts during this incredible, crazy time. For my friends and loved ones at Marvel, I love you guys, and I love you, and all our artists and writers and letterers and colorists and production people. Love you guys with all my heart. I've been in this business for almost 30 years, and it means the world to me. And the work that you guys have put in at Marvel, and for all comic creators out there, the work that you've put into this industry is going to continue. We're going to continue to kick ass. We're just going to get past this particular moment, and I know how hard it can be. So love you guys. Anyway, comic shops, bookstores, in need of help. Some stores are actually open. So if you go to this URL right here, if you go to this URL and click on it, it will tell you what stores are currently open in some form or fashion. The options that they have offering you, getting material to you, getting comics to you, they're all different, clearly based upon where they are, but also, as a comics fan, or maybe wanting to be a new comics fan, please call some of these stores or call a local store. See if they can create a pull list for you. For those of you who don't know what a pull list is, that's just telling your local retailer, hey, these are the books that I'm interested in. When they come out, just put them on the side for me, and and I will pick them up and pay for them and stuff like that. It really helps your retailers out, especially if you pay in advance for this stuff, right? Some retailers are offering curbside pickup, special deliveries, and they also sell gift cards, gift certificates. A lot of them have a big online presence. You can still reach out to them. So please get the word out. Use Yelp, use Twitter, use Facebook, whatever you can. Get the word out. I know you guys are craving the content like I am. I'm missing the books, man. I got to get my fix. So do what you can. I know we're all tightening our belts right now. but this will pass. It will pass. So I'm going to move on to another thing here. So I don't want to miss anything else. So I write myself dubious notes. For those of you who are not familiar with it, I don't know who isn't familiar at this point if you're on social, but there is a thing, a hashtag called Creators for Comics. And Creators for Comics is a group of comic writers and artists and authors from all walks, shapes. Oh, geez, I can't talk today. From all walks of life, who are joining together in this massive free-form auction on Twitter. The Twitter auction benefits, the proceeds benefit I want to get this right, the Book Industry Charitable Foundation, BINC, B-I-N-C for short. So BINC, first of all, BINC is accepting applications from stores right now. And they will begin providing direct aid to these stores starting at the end of this month. So this is how it works. Creators are running individual auctions, so they're basically tweeting this out with the hashtag Creators for Comics. So if you go to Twitter and search that hashtag, you will see a list of creators and what it is that they're auctioning. Right. So you scroll down on the feed of the auction items on the hashtag, and you basically reply with your bid. Now, please make sure to I've seen some of these bids that are coming in, and it's kind of weird. It's like a lower bid after a high bid. So pay attention, right? Because you may be bidding and think you're the high bid, and you're not. The auction ends on April 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the winner directly, donates their money to BINC and then provides a donation receipt to the auctioneer, and then they claim their item. So with that said, well, hell, I'm gonna put something up on Twitter right now. Okay, so hang on a second. Let's see here. All right, come on, Twitter, do your thing. Boom. Okay, there it is. So here's what I'm putting up right now at hashtag comics for Creators for Comics. I am putting up a portfolio review. Okay, so you want to know what it takes to make it at Marvel? You want to get your portfolio reviewed personally by me? I will do a Skype or a Zoom or one of those two portfolio review with you, personal one-on-one. But there's a catch. Bidding starts at $500. The reason it starts at $500 is because I'm the first bid. So I'm putting in $500, okay? So you got to outbid me. If you outbid me, yes, your donation will go to BINC, but so will my $500, okay? So I will match that $500 bid. The details, again, you reply with your tweets, all right? Please try to keep them in order. Please read the thread, okay? So there's no confusion. Auction ends on the 20th of this month, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, right? The winner will donate their funds. The donation will send a donation to the BINCfoundation.org. Their URL is, I didn't put the URL in there. Anyway, it's on Twitter. Okay, sorry, my bad. So the winner can send as many as 10 pages. Okay, 10 pages for me to review. Sorry, there's no groups. This is a one-on-one with me and the winner of the auction, or whoever the winner decides to give that review to. However you want to do it, it's one-on-one. Okay, guys? And of course, the review will be on a mutually agreed upon date. It'll be soon. It's just a matter of flexibility. When they're free, when you're free, when I'm free, and we'll work it out. So again, please review the entire thread. And make sure that you're not underbidding and then feeling disappointed because of that. So let's move on from there. But that is comics, hashtag comics for creators. Okay, great cause. Let's raise some money. All right, and lots of amazingly talented people who are donating in time, donating art, donating comics, you name it. Also, just so you guys know, if some of this stuff gets too rich for you, you can donate directly to BINC. So just do it. $5, $10, whatever you got. If you feel so inclined, it would be awesome. So let's get to a few questions. You guys know, or maybe you don't know. Sorry, I should have said it at the beginning. We're going to do the tutorial today. We're going to finish off. We're going to recap it a little bit, and then we're going to finish off that storytelling sequential art tutorial that I started. All right. So I recommend if you did not see, this is issue 9, 9, 9. I can't get it. This is issue 9. I would go back to issue 7 because we kind of got messed up with issue 8. We had Umberto, who was fantastic, Umberto Ramos, and then I hit the wrong button and I don't know what I did. I blew up my Twitter. So issue 7 is the beginning of this tutorial. We dig into my philosophy, my personal philosophy on storytelling, and what I think is sort of the things that I think about, the mania that I go through, even before putting pencil on paper, the reference that I acquire before putting pencil on paper, the studying of the script, talking to the writer, and making dubious notes for myself. And this is just for an 11-page story. I would do this issue by issue, no matter what the project was. Clearly, if I was writing the story, it's a whole different process because as I'm writing, I'm seeing it at the same time. It makes it a little easier, but at the same time, it also makes it a lot harder because the pressure's on. So let's have a couple of questions here. There were a few that were still remaining from our last issue, but let me see if I can start here. All right, open these up. Okay, actually, Jared Klosterman, he asks a great question. This is a question I get, actually all of us get at Marvel all the time. So Jared asks, I'm a 20-year-old aspiring comic writer without any history of being published, aside from when I wrote for my high school newspaper. And one of my goals is to write for Marvel. What steps do I need to take to grab the attention of Marvel's recruiters? I've been told webcomics are one way. I'm worried that mine would get lost in a pile of other webcomics online. It hasn't stopped me from working, though. I'm constantly writing comic scripts, thumbnails to practice. I hope you can give me some insight. Thank you, Jared. Jared, like I said, awesome question, and thanks for phrasing it so succinctly, actually, because this helps a lot. So, webcomics, an indie comic, whatever it may be, you're actually making your odds of being seen a lot easier. And let me explain. So Jared, let's say you write a 20-page Spider-Man story, just an evergreen story, and you mail that into us at Marvel. But now I understand we also don't accept unsolicited scripts, right? So there's a whole process for that too. But so it's already difficult and cumbersome to get to us. And I apologize about the unsolicited script stuff, but we live in a very, very litigious world, and we're not the only company that has to do this, but we have to protect ourselves. Even we creators have to protect ourselves. When someone sends me an idea for something, I do not open it. And if I do open it by accident, I close it immediately because I can't look at that stuff, right? Because I can find myself in a real sort of legal entanglement in many ways. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world, and I'm being very, very honest with you. However, let's say you could get a script into an editor's hands. Let's look at the life of an editor, right? An editor is working, 10, 12, 15 hours a day to get books out the door, right? So they've got a stack of scripts of stuff that is part of their job. Then they're trying to read through it, right? And they're doing multiple titles and working with multiple writers. So probably the last thing they want to do is go home and read scripts that are coming from people trying to break in. It's just human nature, right? You're exhausted. So very, very tough to get a script read unless another creator hands it to us and says, hey, listen, this person really has something. However, you send in an independent comic you've done, right? Your idea, not a Marvel idea, right? Because we can look at your ideas. You could send me your let's say it was me with my creator stuff, Ash. I could send Marvel an Ash comic and it's fine. They could read this, right? Because I own it. It's my idea. It's already in the world, so to speak. So if I'm an editor, reading something that's already made and fully formed in comic format is a lot easier than 20 20 or 30, typewritten pages on my desk. It's going to be a lot easier. So while your webcomic, well, even if your webcomic isn't seen by thousands upon thousands of people, it doesn't mean that one editor won't see it, especially if it's compelling content, right? Your ability to be seen by thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people may also have to do with your how long you've been in the industry, your name, and stuff. If you're just starting out, right, nobody really knows who you are. It doesn't mean that it won't get seen by the one person who needs to see it. So I would actually recommend any writers trying to break in, get yourself published, right? Now, yes, some people come into the comics industry because they've worked in television, they've written novels, they've done outside work, they've gotten themselves published. The beauty of today as opposed to 30 years ago when I was trying to break in, is that it's much easier to self-publish now than it ever was. It's much easier to actually just print off one-offs of your comic than it ever was, right? Back in my time, it would have cost a fortune, money that certainly no beginner writer, artist would actually have to do this sort of stuff. So you have it easier. So which means there's no excuses in a lot of ways. So the gauntlet's been thrown, right? No excuses. If you say, well, I'm not an artist. Well, guess what? There's a lot of young artists like yourself, young writer, who are looking to team up with a really good up and coming writer, of the same level, and say, hey, how about we get together and we do something, right? And you don't have to print. Just put it online. You can put it online. And every once in a while, I will get links and I will get, emails from creators saying, hey, I'm Jared, and this is my online comic. Would you take a look? And every once in a while, I will click on that more often than you think, kind of like always, to see what's happening, because you just never know. So yeah, I think it's a great idea if you can manage it. Find someone to team up with. Don't even have to live in the same country. There's artists everywhere. There's writers everywhere. And if you've got the stuff, then maybe also try to find that one artist that might be simpatico with your writing, and that's really the way to go. So thank you for that question, Jared. Let's move on. Okay, my old friend Nicolas Cerrone. Nicolas is asking, I think what he's asking here is details, how much detail to put in characters that are at a distance. To be honest with you, that is something that happens just in the work, right? If you're working pencil to paper, sorry, every time my phone pings, I like to check to make sure that my stream hasn't blown up. Let's say you're working pencil and paper, doing it the analog way, just simply by how small you have to draw, right? That's going to dictate exactly how much detail you can put into that distant character. Now, here's the pitfall of working digitally. I've discovered this very much the hard way. Working digitally, you can blow stuff up and not even realize how much you've blown it up and how much detail you're putting on stuff that, pardon me, got an eyelash, how much detail you're putting into stuff that really doesn't matter. And I found myself doing this. And I remember talking to Scotty Young about this, because Scotty draws digitally as well from time to time. And Scotty said that he likes to lock his page at I think printing size. I'm not sure, but he locks his page either printing size or working size, and then works from there, and never and doesn't enlarge from that point on. I tried that. I found that I was just still enlarging. I couldn't stop doing it. So what I do digitally is I now set my pen point at a certain thickness and thinness. So, and the thickness it's not considerable, but it's a reasonable thickness. And it's my preference. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can set it however you want. But I find that now when I zoom in, suddenly that pen point is huge. And I'm like, oh man, I've zoomed in, and I go, okay, I got to remember to pull out and then do it that way, right? Because when you're working with a pencil or with an actual pen, that pen point is fixed. So you can only get so thick and so thin with it. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to fix, instead of, I can't consciously remember to fix my canvas size. So I just fix my pen point size. And that's helped a lot. But also with respect to detail, the further something goes back, the less detail is needed, really, because just think about it as the lens of a camera, right? And let's say you're shooting through atmosphere. As things fall into the background, they do lose detail. They get lost in, if you're in a city, in the humidity, in the smog, whatever it may be. But again, there's different cases where you may want to highlight something that's really, really tiny in a massive expanse. So you could do that with lighting. You could do that with your silhouetting of the character. There's so many different ways. If you're talking about characters that are, let's say me here and a background, right? And my background here. You'll notice my background is relatively dark. It's kind of, by design, because if the background was light, then, everything would sort of flatten out. And you'd miss this glorious thing that's happening here every morning. So really, I try, guys. I try. This is the best. This is the best this is going to get. So there's two ways to go about this, right? You can make a highly detailed background, but then you do need to simplify the form in the foreground. And you could do that by adding considerable blacks, considerable detailing that darkens the background and the foreground. Or you can go highly detailed on the foreground and go, much more simplistic in that background. You could use heavy blacks, lots of whites, lots of white, open space, heavy blacks. It's just a matter of contrast and juxtaposition. And you can also use those techniques to evoke emotion, to evoke importance or lack of importance. It's really a matter of what you want the reader, the viewer, to focus on. Okay, you'll see these same rules are applied continuously and will be forever in comic books by the people who really do it right. And you'll see it employed in film. You see it employed on the stage, right? That's simple as a spotlight, right? Spotlight tells you, kind of got to look here. So think of it in those terms. So thank you for the question. Let's see, what else we have here? Oh, that was you, Nicholas. All right. Oh, Matthew. Okay, so Matthew here was responding actually to a tweet thread that I was involved with. It was a young artist whose mom put his stuff online. I thought it was really cool. I love seeing when kids, he was like 13, when kids like that have that kind of energy and raw love of comic books, and this kid certainly did. So Matthew, though, he probably doesn't know that I'm using this. Hey, Matthew, if you're not watching, you can watch it later. So he was suggesting in the thread, can I also suggest the classic How to Draw the Marvel Way? There is so much good stuff in that book, all couched in superhero framework. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but no, it's always behind me. Here we go. There you go. Okay. Hey, bear with me. How to Draw Comics. Let's get rid of this. See, Matthew, thank you for the suggestion. How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. This is my original copy. This is the copy that I got. Let's see, what's the publishing date here? 1978. I picked this up. So this is one of the first editions, and it's in decent shape considering I don't bag it or anything. But I am not fibbing here. I still go back to this. And I look at it all the time. It seems like something that's very sort of thin, and maybe it's trite because it's got Marvel goodness and Stan Lee goodness all over it. But holy mackerel, I have a library filled with art books, how-to art books by some of the greatest artists of all time. And yet this little book here manages to encompass it all beautifully and simply, especially for the art of comic books. It's just I don't know, it's how to draw in its purest sense. And this is all you really need to get started. So if you're a young creator out there, I think it's still in print somewhere. And actually, Marvel didn't print it. So again, I'm not shilling here. I'm just telling you, this is really good stuff. And as we do some tutorials, I'll promise you, as we do tutorials, while I can't pull pages from this because it's probably copywritten material, I will certainly be looking at this before doing any tutorial because Stan and John Buscema did an amazing job with this and showing you how to draw anything, really, basically perspective, superhero poses, how to draw action in particular, which is so important to comic books, and not just the superhero genre, right? Because I think that flow of action is important, no matter what kind of story you're telling. So thank you for not for the question, but for the statement. Let's see, we got one more here. All right, so R. Thomas Alwyn. Really looking forward to it. I think we were referring to part 2 of the tutorial that got blown up a couple of days ago. Will you be bringing up anything on passing of time and sequentials? How do you personally use layouts and panel sizes to speed up or slow down a scene, etc.? Another great question, and actually, hopefully, and if everything stays stable with the broadcast, I'll be hitting that as we go through pages. So now, yay! Enough of me blathering about stuff other than tutorial. For those of you who've come on for this, let me set myself up. All right. Now, fair warning. What happened last time is that, like I said, I hit something that shared 2 screens instead of 1 screen, and everything went into overload. So if that happens again, my feed may stall. I'm hoping it does not happen again. So let's switch over now to my screen share. Hopefully you guys are getting that. And if that happens again, my phone will blow up with guys at Marvel saying, "What are you doing? You're screwing it up." All right, hold on. Also, folks, feel free to ask your questions. I'm here to take them. And now, also, please be forewarned, I cannot see the questions. Those are coming in from the folks at Marvel. They'll be texting me. All right, just want to make sure we're still good here. Hold on. I want to lock this in. You guys can see me in the corner there. Current application. Yay. All right, here we go. All right, now I just got to move a few windows here. Bear with me. So far, so good. Now, I'll zoom in for you guys. Let me just move my keyboard up here. Get myself comfortable. And what is going on? Yay. Zooming in. All right, so I'm going to review again. And I apologize. This will be the 3rd time I'm reviewing this, but let's do it. All right? So here we go. We talked about your camera. Your camera can move in 3 basic directions: right to left, up and down, forward and backwards. We went into detail on this about this in issue 7, but just reviewing very quickly. Now let's talk about right to left movement. Right to left movement is really the most naturalistic way to convey action, to have characters move across the screen, and to keep the reader's mind and eye engaged. Once you start moving left to right, subconsciously it disturbs the eye. It causes something to happen in people's brains where they're like, wait, something's not flowing right, it's not feeling right. But you could use this to great effect. So to reiterate and to strengthen the argument about right to left, we in Western culture read right to left. So hang on, I'm not even sure I have my pen ready. Hold on. See, I wasn't ready like I should have been. Got my eraser. Let's see. Look at my pen. I'd like to make that red. Hold on. Just selecting my brush. Where's my brushes? Just when I think I'm ready, I am not. Let's go for a 20. Thank you. Okay. So, when you start any page, you'll start here. Well, let's say you're somewhere deep in your book. You're starting in that left corner. You're winding yourself down to the bottom, and then zip, you go right back up, right? Time. Your clock moves left to right. Yes. It's been a rough week. Graphs. Again, progress of time. Even if your sales figures are going down, it's all moving this way. And look no further than your favorite video game, where when your characters are progressing, almost always they are moving left to right. Extremely important. So I use left to right movement exclusively in my work as much as I possibly can, especially when when action scenes are starting. The first bit of action, or if there's any particular moment in a scene where I want things to be sped up and I want your eye to move faster, even though you have to stop to read the dialogue. Even with the placement of dialogue balloons, when I dialogue my own stuff, I try to keep that flow going, because the idea is that you want the reader to move across the page in this manner. If now again, there could be situations where you're getting the reader to move, and then suddenly you really want them to focus on something. So maybe your next panel opens up on a vertical. Maybe your panel opens up on somebody or something going right to left. You can use these tools, but the idea is to flow the eye, to give, especially in a two-dimensional medium like ours, where you want to try to convey three-dimensionality and, more importantly, movement, right? Because not only is it two-dimensional, it's stagnant, right? So, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but you know what I'm saying? Our images don't move, because then it would just be animation. So, spoke about, what left to right means. It's progress, normality, the positive. The opposite, of course, is true for right to left, right? And you've all seen sort of that Darwin evolution of man, right? Sort of from like the fish in the water, and then it moves up to ape, and then caveman, and then finally have man, right? So if that started going in this direction, that's symbolizing regression, correct? It's not symbolizing forward movement, evolution, etc. So let's get rid of that. Okay. And then, of course, so you want to try to keep the reader's eye moving left to right as much as you possibly can. Now, this may go back and forth also if you're having two people having a conversation. But try to adhere to this as much as possible, because at the end of that conversation, you do want to lead them off to the next panel. Another thing you could also do is a locked vertical, right? Now, a locked vertical, let's say a character just sort of standing here, will lock the reader into that scene, and will signify a certain amount of importance to this character. But with respect to left and right, as I doodled last time, if I'm going to show a character throwing a punch, sorry, my cursor's dragging a little bit because of the stream, but let's say I'm having a character throw a punch, they're probably going to be throwing it in this direction. And the person whose face they're punching is probably going to go in that direction. It's just, for me, it flows better. And we'll also talk about the reverse within a fight scene in a second. So let's see, we talked about like vertical. Okay. Up and down, right? We reviewed this last week. Up, dominant, strong, command. It could be a hero, villain. Down, the exact opposite, right? Now, by this, you could either, this could either be the direction in which a character is moving on screen or on panel, or where your camera is placed. So if we're doing what we would call the heroic shot, sort of the heroic up shot, right? And here our camera is looking upward, and this person, whether hero or villain, is in a position of strength. Clearly, we do the down shot, position of weakness. Oh man, looking upward. You could even have that character, the taller character there. But sans that character there, this can be a person who is incredibly lonely, who's been left alone, if you want to shade them in, depending on how small they are here, depending on where they're standing, right? Let's say they're just standing on a cliff top, right? And you're zooming out, and whatever it may be, it's, and depending on where they're looking, right? If they're looking down, right, they could be depressed, they could be lonely, it could be, you name it. If they're looking upward, they could be pondering, but they're still kind of lonely and on their own. So, alrighty. So now after, and in terms of up and down travel, right? You could have, a hero climbing the mountaintop, signifying, going to the pinnacle, going to whether it's to fight the bad guy, whatever it may be, they are moving upward. On the way down, different story, correct? But it's also a matter of posture, gesture, how how we go about rendering them. Interesting. My I don't know if you guys can see it, but my dock has come up. Anyway, okay. So that's up and down, forward and backwards. Again, characters moving forward, power, dominance, importance, aggression, backwards, weak, passive, lost, or they're moving on, or we are moving on from the scene. So in other words, character that's walking towards us, which you'll see at the beginning of my story, they're usually in a position of, they're coming in a power position, but they're also coming in as a character that you want to introduce into a scene. Now, if we reverse that, let's see if this will work. Yay. If you reverse that, and let's say this character, we're walking away from us, you sort of know that our scene is ending, or they've had enough, or they're sort of resolved in some sort of defeat. None of these rules are absolute, guys. So I just want to make that clear. But these are good rules to understand before you decide to break them. Now, I talked about this one as well. One that I don't necessarily always adhere to or always believe, but I've heard it talked about. So, for example, this particular, the left side of the screen supposedly conveys the weaker, more out of control character, perhaps the malevolent one. The stronger side of the screen would be the right side. Now, the reason I don't adhere to this always is because when a scene starts, and if your camera is properly locked into the 180 degree rule, character here and a character here, let's say they're having a discussion. That discussion can change very, very quickly. That discussion could start with this character in the weaker position, and then this character in a stronger position. But most good scenes will have characters, sort of fencing back and forth or ping-ponging back and forth from strength to weakness. And in a lot of good scenes, better scenes, if a scene, the old rule, if a scene starts in a negative, right, and it's a real sort of downturn scene, you want that scene to end in a positive. And sometimes that could be with this character coming in sort of with a negative point of view, this character coming in a stronger point of view, but they're discussing the negative. And then when it's all said and done, this character walks away with strength, and this character could possibly walk away negative, or just sort of justifying that positive. But I do believe it goes back and forth. So it's a little hard for me to really sort of say that this is a hard, fast rule, because I don't certainly use it myself. We've talked about also Dutch angles. Again, I'm sorry for folks that were in last week, but I figured it's just me today, so I got no time constraints except for the battery in my camera. So the 180, the Dutch angle. We talked about the Dutch angle as something that can be employed sporadically. I would suggest, and by that I mean that the Dutch angle, first of all, let me explain the Dutch angle. So, when we shoot scenes, this is your horizon line, right? And that's sort of how we see the world. But with the Dutch angle, what you're doing is the camera is tilting. The camera is tilting and suddenly changing the horizon line. Now, this is a really disconcerting thing when a viewer sees this, when a reader sees this. But it can be used to great effect to indicate that something is really, really, really messed up. And that something could be, something that's hiding behind a door. Hang on, I'm trying to get it my dock. Can you guys see my dock? Oh, I guess you can. Okay, that's fine then. It's just annoying me. So that could mean, let's say, for example, we've got, some folks, let's say it's a mystery horror piece, and we got characters that are coming in from the left to the right, and here, and suddenly, actually, let's start this a little differently. Hold on. Let's start this a little differently. Okay, so we've got some characters. Let's say, we have sort of a doorway here, actually a wall here. We have characters that are peeking beyond the wall, and they're sort of, gang of kids, whatever it may be, and they're sort of peeking behind the wall, and there's something here. And then our next panel, or it could be the turn of the page, now is our Dutch tilt.
and we've flipped the camera around, and they're now entering the room, but they're freaked out. They know there's something back here. There's a door, a mystery door. It hasn't opened, but you are telling the viewer crazy stuff lies behind that door. Beware, don't go in that door. Or, again, it could be a scene that opens up with a character here, and he's listening to a character off screen who's telling them something crazy. It could be a villain describing a plot, a villain describing how they've won the day, and then suddenly, that axis starts to shift, and things get really, really wonky. This is one that really applies more to film in a lot of ways, but you can do it, especially if there's a panel in between, right? So if we started here with our hero going, whoa, that's the bad guy. And then our next panel here is our bad guy. Ha ha. All right. Got you. Did I tell you I stole your dog? And then suddenly everything starts to shift. Things get a little nutty. You stole my what? Now I wouldn't necessarily, this is not something I would do in a story, but I'm just trying to show you an example of how this can be done in many different ways. But if you use this a lot in one story, it loses complete and total impact. It's that boy who cried for wolf thing, right? Or if you're sitting there and you're banging a garbage can as loud as you can, saying, look at this moment, but you do that all the time in a story, every moment is lost and no moment is important. I've even seen really great filmmakers do this, and it drives me nuts because I just sit there after the movie and I'm asking them, what did you want me to focus on? What did you think was the most important emotional moment for you, so that I know it too? Please communicate it to me, because I'd like to know, because right now everything's a mishmash, and then I walk out of a movie feeling nothing for anyone or even the story. So try to keep that in mind. I've often said that, I guess it's because of my music background. I hear a story. When I read a story, every story sounds like a different piece of music to me. Could be rock, could be classical, could be, well, I'd say jazz, but I'm not a jazz fan, but some of it could be jazz. I especially hear movie soundtracks. It reminds me of a certain movie. And usually the great soundtracks. So those are some of the things that I think about. Now, let me move on here. Okay, so we've done Dutch angles. Let's go to the 180 rule. This is where we always get blown up. So the 180 rule, one more time. And this time, hopefully with feeling, without any technological issues. So if this is our axis, let's call this an axis here, okay? And by an axis, I mean you're establishing a scene. We're jumping into a scene for the first time. And for those of you who don't know what an establishing a scene is, shame on you. An establishing a scene is before going to a scene in a story for the first time, you need to establish the setting. Now, that setting, let me move down here just to, let's close up with this stuff. All right, give me a second. Let me neaten this up. Okay. Now, that scene could be, let's say it's, let's say it is Peter and Mary Jane at an Italian restaurant. Now, you could start that scene with, sort of a street scene, and you've got your cars here, and, you get your buildings, and maybe here is, the Italian restaurant, whatever it may be, right? And you can start that scene here by focusing on, and you can even get tighter on the Italian restaurant. We can do something as simple as, here's the restaurant, here's the awning. If you want to show them in the window, whatever it may be. You don't have to even show them, right? I mean, going back to Seinfeld, right? And they would show the coffee shop all the time, but you knew that it was the coffee shop. So you do that exterior of the building, and you give you some atmosphere, fire hydrants. Maybe there's a brownstone next to it. Whatever, make it look like New York. Get your reference. Then your next shot, you can establish the interior of this restaurant. So let's say in the interior of the restaurant, you got Peter here, and you got MJ here. So we are on, hang on. So if this is the table, here we are. Our camera is somewhere along here. Here's our access point. Now, what's important to note about this, I'll say it again. Here's MJ, here's Peter. If you start your scene, no matter how you establish it, and by the way, going back to establishing shot, if you then leave this scene, when you come back to it in the same story, you don't have to establish everything. You know, give us a little bit so that we know, oh yeah, we just saw this a couple of scenes ago. You're good to go. You've already established it. Just make sure that it's not confusing. Give us enough to know, oh, we're back in the restaurant with Peter and MJ. So if you start your scene here, I don't care where your camera is. I don't care if your camera's here, here, here. But if you're within this side of the axis, you do not want to break. This is 180 degrees. You do not want to break this. You don't want to bounce from MJ being on the right side of the screen and Peter being on the left side of the screen. Even if you go slightly behind Peter, do not go here. If you go here, now these characters have switched. And you got Peter on this side, you got MJ on the other. And you don't want to do that because it's gonna confuse the reader, the viewer, and they won't know where they are. It's just not a great way to convey a story. Now, this does not mean that you cannot break the rule. You can break the rule, but use it for good reason. As I mentioned last week, Stanley Kubrick was a master of doing this. He wouldn't do it a lot, but when he did it, he was trying to tell you something, right? Go look that up. There's tons of YouTube clips about how Kubrick and some other masters like Spielberg would on occasion break the 180 rule. Now, if you're going to break the 180 rule, another thing that would be helpful is you may have to reestablish the scene. So let's say this is a fight scene, okay? So let's say we got Captain America here. Actually, no, hang on a second. I'm gonna put Captain America here. I'm gonna put Batman here, right? Now, clearly, Captain America is gonna be kicking Batman's butt. Sorry, it's just gonna happen. I'm a huge Batman fan, but sorry, it's Cap. So if we move up here, so we got Cap here, you got Batman here. Look at those pointy ears, right? You got Batman here, they got their fists up. Now, this may look silly to you, but this is how I start all my layouts. And you got Cap here, he's got his cool shield, he's got his little feathers in his head, right? And they're about to start fighting. And I'll compose a scene, and that scene will, for the most part, continue with these two characters being on the left and on the right. Even if I get behind Batman, Cap is still here, right? Now, let's say Batman throws a punch in this direction and Cap ducks in this direction. And now I find myself in a situation where Cap's gonna be here and Batman's gonna be here. What do you do? What do you do? I'll tell you what you do. You reestablish the scene. So basically, Cap, you once they switch, pull your camera out. Pull out so that we could see they have now switched positions. Try to establish that background. Maybe put something in that background that you established in the earlier panels that locks you into that situation. You know what? Why do telemarketers always call me during this thing? It's crazy. So I wanted to get that across too, because that is a way also where you could break the rule because you have to, right? Because it's fisticuffs and they're moving and the camera's moving. But I sometimes watch movies and I can't tell who's fighting. Either number one because it's too dark, or number two because they're so in tight and the camera itself is rotating and changing the 180 and the characters are rotating and I'm like, whoa. Where did the hero go? Who's getting punched in the face? Who's getting kicked in the stomach? I cannot tell. So be very careful, especially with choreographing your fight scenes. Just so you guys know, when I choreograph my fight scenes, I actually pantomime them, and I'll use my computer cam and I'll pantomime that fight scene, not just the attack, but the defense or the contact, so that I get sort of a sense of the way that the bodies may move and where I want my camera. And I just want to reiterate, these are my rules. These are not rules that everyone has to follow. This is just the way that I go about my work. So,
your mileage may vary. So let's get into some of these pages. Let's see where we are on time now, because I will get through this today. All right, wow, we're almost at an hour, but we're good to go. All right, so let's close out of here, and let's go to Miracle Man, my 11 pager. Now I've gone over these first two pages, so let me I'll recap very quickly. For those of you, you could stop and you could check out you could pause the video later and you could check out the script that Grant Morrison gave me. It was a 4-page typewritten script that he wrote when he was 19 years old, and they were just panels. There were no pages. It was originally supposed to be a 6-page story in Warrior magazine, and I turned it into an 11-page story for Miracle Man Annual. Oh, we got some questions too, which is cool. All right, we'll try to hit all these as much as we possibly can. So let me go right to the artwork here and isolate some of this stuff here and go back to some of the rules that I was talking about, some of the suggestions I made. Here we have a character who's moving forward. This is our focal point character. This is our priest. He is our protagonist. Yes, he is coming towards us, but I try to keep him small in a very large landscape. The reason is because he is in deep thought. He is distraught. Now, originally I had colored his priest garments all in black, and I decided not to. I also decided to go with a more European feel for this story, inspired by Mobius. So again, all this stuff was covered in issue number 7. So go back there and I'll deal with it. The seagulls I added here, I added to give dimensionality to this. Without the seagulls, this felt very flat. Without this simple rock here, this all felt very flat. The lighthouse is something that I'm using in order to establish for the viewer where we are in the scene at all times. Even though I am not going to break the 180 rule, I hope, I want to establish sort of the terrain, what it looks like down here, because this is my set. This is my entire set that I will be using for this whole story. Let's move on. All right. Page 2. Again, I went over the script in issue 7, so please go back there. I think I mentioned the fact. By the way, what you're seeing here are my layouts. Like I said before, I do these sort of very simplistic, sort of stick layouts, where this is sort of what it would look like, and then from there I go into more detail, and then from there I go into finishes. So here we go. Now you'll notice here that I've added some rain, and the rain is going left to right. But you'll see in the finish, something changes here. One of the things I don't use in my work, I've never used in my work, is speed lines. That's just a personal preference. I'm not saying that using speed lines is wrong or bad or anything like that. It's just, I like to challenge myself to see if I can demonstrate movement without the use of speed lines. So going to the finish here. Okay, let's get rid of this. You'll see I added the lighthouse here. That wasn't in the original layout. Oh, no, it was. Okay, sorry. But I added the lighthouse here, again, trying to anchor you into the scene. My camera here, if this was a storyboard, I would have indicated that I want the camera to come down, and then I want that camera to zoom in a little bit on the foot and focus on the foot as the water would be rolling in at that exact same time, timing it perfectly, hopefully. Hey, I don't have to film it, I can just describe it. You'll notice that the cross is blowing. You'll notice that the collar, the jacket is billowing, hopefully indicating that there is some heavy winds coming in. A storm is brewing. But you'll notice I took the rain out. There's no rain there. That's for a reason. I wanted to have it build with the narrative, with Grant's captions. And here's our first raindrop, right? Now compare that to the layout where I really started the rain a little earlier. Here we have one raindrop. I believe here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 raindrops. The storm is starting to brew. That first raindrop hits our priest right on the lens of his glasses, still trying to give the sense of the wind blowing. Hopefully I succeeded. Hopefully you guys could feel it. When Richard Isenoff adds the color, his moodiness really makes it sing. Again, not using speed lines. Let me zoom in here just to give you guys a sense of how I'm trying to evoke emotion. I hope I do. Again, I could never tell until you guys finally, read the story or see the story. I wanted to give a sense of him, not just kneeling, but literally falling hard to his knees. So I add the splash to the puddles. His looking upwards, skyward. Once again, we have our lighthouse here to lock us into position, and yet
and the rain is starting to come in, and it's coming in left to right in sort of a very, naturalistic way that tells you, well, everything's still okay. Nothing's wrong yet, or nothing's wrong at this moment. Give you a sense of Richard's coloring here. I'll zoom out in a second. What I thought was beautiful about Richard's coloring here is that he added just the slightest bit of sun here, right? So that says to me that somewhere in the distance, there was a little break in the clouds, and the sun just hit there, but it did not touch our priest, right? Our priest is looking pretty dour at this point. But you'll see Richard's beautiful, beautiful moody coloring that he added to the sky, the watercolor effects, that sense of heavy clouds that it could rain at any moment, which, yes, it's going to. So let's move on from there. Okay, so here to show you this is to show you that the process of that I go through before even getting to that stage of layout. So because Grant had broken this down the way he did, he wanted a title page, and he wanted to introduce our villain in the title page. So I came up with several variations, and my initial thought was to do this as a double page spread. But let's read what he calls the frame, which would be a panel, but he didn't indicate pages. So large title frame, a path along the sea cliffs, seen in full figure is a young man whose hair blows in the wind. It is black and cut in a Beatles style of the time, not too long, but covering his ears and reaching just past his collar with a straight fringe. And would you like a shave too, sir? He is wearing a black vinyl short raincoat, black polo neck jumper, black drain pipe trousers, which I guess we call skinny jeans these days, and black Chelsea boots. His face is strong and cruel with high cheekbones and slanting eyebrows. He's smiling in a slight wicked way. His body is slim. He looks like a mod angel of death. The best part about this is that Grant sent me a photo of him when he was 19. And it's this guy. So I just made a Grant, 19-year-old Grant. So the title, so there's a caption from the priest. It says, that it'll. Oh, I'm sorry, for the omnipotent narrator, that it will pass him by. October incident, 1966. So this happens just before. Again, go back to issue 7. I described what the Miracle Man a little bit more in length, but this happens just before the Battle of London. This is Johnny Bates on his way to try to kill Miracle Man, and in the process destroying an incredible amount of London. It's a horrific battle, and it's a book for adults, not for kids. So these are some of my ideas behind this. Let's see. Let me open this up here. Okay, so I originally thought of this as a double page spread to get some impact and get real impact onto Johnny Bates. So my thought was that this was, we're now looking the opposite side of the cliffside, right? So our priest is somewhere over here on his knees, and Johnny is walking towards us, right? And this is the opposite cliffs, and there's the surf. And I thought that, and again, Dutch angle. Why? Because things are getting really crazy. This guy's out of his mind, and incredibly evil, just pure evil. So I thought, well, this is a cool way to introduce him, right, in a very super heroic fashion, and he's big, and we're also not only employing the Dutch tilt, but we're employing the upshot, right, the power shot, heroic shot or villain shot. This guy is the man. The evil man, but the man nevertheless. And then I thought, I don't know. I mean, it's something about this, even though it's a heroic shot. I don't know if it's. I just something about him just casually walking across the surf wasn't quite hitting me. So I abandoned that idea, and I tried this one. This one I liked even less. This one was, now we're on the top of the cliff. If you could see this, right? We're at the top of the cliff. But my lighthouse is in the wrong spot. It's completely in the wrong spot, because that would mean our priest is down here. And I thought about flopping the image, and it still wasn't working, right? So even if I got rid of the lighthouse, our priest would be somewhere off panel here, and Johnny's looking down, and there's several things that are not happening here. Number one, he's not engaging the reader. Number two, we lose sight of our priest, or a feel of where our priest is. It's just too far away, and there's something just completely non-heroic about it. Our shot is sort of a down shot. It makes him look too normal. I didn't like it. Anyway, so you get the picture. This one kind of stunk. And again, I showed this also just for all you artists who are out there, or writers are out there, who just sit there and go, why can't I make it look like so and so's art? Why can't I do this as easily as so and so can do it, professional? You know why you can't? Because we can't. We don't do it that. It doesn't come that naturally. Yes, every once in a while you have a green day where you just start drawing, and man, it's magic. It happens. Those days are very rare. At least for me, they're very rare. And many of the artists that I talk to, okay, we struggle with this stuff just like you guys do. For every finished page, there is a garbage pan, whether it's digital or actual, that is filled with drawings that are rejected and thrown out. Have faith, have hope. This is how it happens. This is the process of putting it on the paper and then throwing it out until you get the right one. Or taking a piece. If I like this head, maybe I'll use it. If I don't use it in a scene, I'll use it somewhere else. You know, don't kick yourself for this. This is part of what I talk about with respect to demystifying the process. I want to demystify the process for you guys and show you that we kick ourselves all day long to get it right too. Now, yeah, when we get it right, maybe it's a little bit tighter than when if you're just starting out, than when you get it right. But that just comes with age. I have been doing this forever. I've been doing this probably longer than many of you have been alive. So again, grab some hope with that and understand, no matter what your chosen field is. Yes, it's great to look up to, a great director, great actor, whatever it may be, whatever it is that you want to do, but understand the years that they've put in that craft and be forgiving of yourself. Don't go easy on yourself, but be forgiving of yourself that you're not quite there yet. But you have to try just as, if you want to make it, right? If you want to have a job like the one that I've had, you got to keep up with me. You got to work at least as hard as I do, and if chances are you're going to be a better artist than I am. I'm not. I do what I do out of just beating my head against the wall, right? Even in my college, I was not the most talented artist in my college by far, but I think I beat my head against the wall a lot more than some other people. So maybe that's why I was able to do what I was able to do in the comics. So here's another rejected shot. Okay, now actually this one I kind of use, right? So here is sort of the mystery reveal, right? Where we see our priest here and our villain is coming in this way. I wasn't crazy about this either. I feel like it's offering, we're keeping the camera basically in the same spot, right? We've just now pulled out from where we left our priest on his knees. But again, something about Johnny just being at the same level as the priest right now, even though, it's kind of a cool shot and you see the Chelsea boot and you wonder, what the heck? I still felt that this double page spread was not working for me at all. Here's another one. Now, again, same idea. In this case, I've got Johnny in a distance. You could see why this is all wrong. The only reason I tried this was because I was going to put the title of the story in the sand. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. But ultimately, this really stunk. It really did. And then I went with this shot, double page spread. Double page spread, and there was something I was really kind of digging here, right? The fact that we're doing the upshot on Bates. He's looking down at us at the camera. He's covered in shadow, and I'm going to use the cliffs to put the title of the story here and the credits. And theoretically, if you were the priest looking up over your shoulder, you would see this. But what we know is that the priest is probably not seeing this. And as I looked at this, I'm like, this is kind of cool. And then I thought, really kind of a waste of a double page spread because there's just nothing happening here, right? Now I could put that title all the way across here if I wanted to, but it just seems like I could probably get this all into one page. So that's what this layout was. And this was my thought. And now here, you'll notice the rain is coming in. It'll probably, when I get to the finish, you'll see it's probably less. Actually, let's just go to the finish so we can save some time here. So we got the rain coming in, right? So we had, 7 drops the last time. Now we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got a little bit more than 7. The rain is starting to build. Which direction is the rain coming in? It's now coming in right to left. Trying to get you guys feeling a little bit uneasy about Bates. I've applied a Dutch tilt with the angle of the rocks here. And man, this took me forever. This took me longer than drawing everything else on the page because I wanted to give the title that sort of rock poster feel, like that Fillmore East rock poster feel, putting in our names in that sort of crazy, unreadable font. But it was fun to do. But man, it took forever. And all those photographs that I showed you before of rocks that I had, that all comes into play as I start to look at the nooks and crannies. But also, one thing to note about Johnny, and Johnny Bates, you'll notice this throughout the entire story. I went for an open European feel, except for one character. Johnny Bates is the only character that has solid blacks on him, basically, or drawn into him. Everything else is open for color. So, and that, again, was a very conscious decision on my part. He's the bad guy. He's the heavy. I want you to focus on him and his mannerisms and everything he does. So here, I give you that up heroic shot where this guy is in a position of power. Our priest is down there somewhere. Dutch angle, right to left movement, using all the subtlety, the subtle sort of subconscious things that I think will help you as a reader get a certain feeling. And then, of course, Richard Easenough comes in. He adds more of a light source here to emphasize the title and those looming storm clouds, and of course the rain. So this is I'm very fortunate to work with some amazing collaborators, and Richard is one that I've worked with. God, I can't remember how long I've been working with him. And it's funny because you look at the two of us, we're about the same age. He may even be a little bit younger. And he looks terrible. I mean, I look great compared to him. He's probably watching this because every time I mention his name online, he likes to highlight and say, look who's mentioning me. Pardon me, getting parched. Okay, so now we're on to page 4. Hopefully you guys aren't bored. There's a good possibility the battery on my camera may die, but I have a secondary one here. So if it does die, the screen will freeze eventually, and I'll just have to switch over. So bear with me. Doesn't mean I'm gone. All right. So we're on to page 4. Frame 5, the priest close-up. He's staring heavenward. His hands are clenched at his chin. Rain runs on his face. And then the caption of what's going on here. And then frame 6, flashback, long shot. Priest walking on the sea cliffs. 3 years earlier. It's night, snow is falling as opposed to rain. Panel 7, flashback. Same view as frame 6, but lit as though by a flash of lightning. The priest is turned towards the sea, and then the caption. Panel 8, flashback. The priest looking up as what appears to be a small comet hurtles overhead. Panel 9, the priest still kneeling on the sand. The sea has almost reached his knees. His head is bent in fervent prayer. In the background, we can see a small dark figure of the young man approaching. So those are my directions, and again, you can see this was originally on page 1 of the typewritten manuscript, and this is page 2, a portion of it, and I'm breaking it up as I sort of see fit in this story. Now, again, none of this happens without me and Grant either talking on the phone or over email with our editor in tow to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So if there's something that I want to change, I say, hey, Grant, what do you think about this? And I think it was like 9.9 times out of 10. He was like, go, man, it's awesome. And there was a couple of times he's like, oh, no, this is what I was trying to get across. Cool. All right, so we're on the same page. So this is my layout. Again, we've got our priest. Rain is coming in. And now this is a flashback panel. And what I opted to do with the flashback panel, because it's sort of the same moment, is our priest coming towards us. This is 3 years earlier. There'll be snow. So I'm going to rely on my colorist here to convey that we are shifting time. This will be our flash moment, right, when something explodes in the sky. Our comet going across. What direction? Yay. Okay. And notice snow. Well, I'll do this on let's go to the final. Okay. Pardon me. Also relying a lot on the colors here because there's a lot of detail going on here, especially with the snow. It can get confusing. So Richard's got his work cut out for him. But we've got our priest. Now we've got rain striking him in the eye. We've got the rain coming down a little bit heavier. It is coming down left to right. Our snow in this scene. This is almost identical to the first page. He's wearing different clothing. He's got boots on here because it's it's snowing outside. It's clearly a different time of the year. Richard will color this differently. This is now I'm using I'm taking out all the line work and highlighting everything simply in silhouette. So you should hopefully get the idea of the priest. This kind of reminds me a little bit of is David Lloyd's work on V for Vendetta, and where it was very high contrast. This is extremely high contrast shot. Then we're still in flashback, and now we see our comet going across the sky, and again trying to convey emotion and wind with the hair, with the scarf billowing. But keep in mind, snow going in this direction, snow going in left to right direction. Here, the snow goes right to left because our camera is sort of hovering very close to the 180-degree mark, but still with our priest. Checking my text. Okay, and now we're back in the present. Our rain is starting to come down heavier and heavier. Our priest is still very much, let's see in here, pleading with God. He knows something bad is about to happen. And I had a ton of fun drawing this stuff. Watch you see our lighthouse there? Yeah, you can't really see it here because it's cut off with the scene, but trust me, it's there. So again, keeping you locked in there. I talked about referencing how to draw these ripples in the water, the foam of the sea. So hard to do. These little things, because I never had to really draw it before, are the hardest thing to draw. But if you do your research and you start to get it, I think I kind of nailed it. The next time you have to do it, it comes easier because you've done it before. The other thing that's interesting here is also you have to keep in mind that this is not level. The beach actually gives you a lot of natural Dutch tilts. Not that I want to employ a Dutch tilt here because the water level is level, but even where his knees strike, his knees are down here. I've been thinking, thinking this through, and you wouldn't notice this unless I had done it wrong, right? But the knees are here because this is starting to, the sand is starting to tilt down in order to let the surf come in, right? It's just eroding. But if I had actually done this with the knees here, the effect would have seemed like he's literally floating on the water. And again, this is my kind of craziness. Not everybody's kind of craziness, but I know that a lot of artists think this stuff through because it does add to the ultimate effect. All right, so let's go back now. Move it along. We're actually at page 5. Woohoo! All right, frame 10, ground level. View in the foreground is a black trousered leg of the young man. His boots sunk into the wet sand. Behind that, the priest is turning, startled from his devotions. Panel 11, the young man smiling in a mocking, condescending way. Panel 12, the priest and the young man. I love the whiteout. The priest is getting up with a he's getting up with a trapped, frightened look on his face. Okay, so that's what I got to work with here. Oops, went onto the wrong page. Sorry, guys. All right, so this is my interpretation of this scene, of this moment. We got our Chelsea boots. You see that I haven't really worked out much else except, the priest's body language. And you see here, I didn't nail him sort of that tilt into the surf. So it kind of looks like he's just sort of floating on the water. And I wasn't quite crazy about the flatness of this here. But our rain is coming in right to the left. I'm sorry, yes, right to the left. And again, right to left because here's our bad guy. Here's Johnny. And again, right to left. Dutch tilt. Now let's go to final. Oh, pardon me. You know what, guys? I'm sorry. I know Richard Easoff is screaming right now. I forgot to show you the coloring on the last page. So again, notice the color in the change of the color of the scene. It's a very wintry scene. Changing color of the scene. Changing coloring of the scene. And then back to the real world in real time. So, Richard, there you go. Okay, you got it. You can rest easy. Okay, so here is the final pencils on this piece. So you can see here, I started to add some dimensionality, so we really get a sense of what's forward, what's back, and a little more visual interest for the eye. So we've got this sort of surf bank that's clearly curving down in this direction, right? Because you can see by the way that these boots are tilting, right? It's clearly going down. You know, my vision of this, my thought of this is that this is sort of coming across. It'll go down over this horizon line, and then flatten out, and then it goes down again. And you can see I've worked out exactly the body and the knees and stuff. And a lot of this stuff, guys, happens with photograph too. You know, I'd have to dig this up, but I probably have a photo of myself in this position. And what I'll do is that I'll set up, you know, either a book or a box or something so that my knees will go downwards in this, and I have that downward angle. It really makes a big difference. But you can see the, you know, look on the priest's face. He knows something's coming. And there's Johnny. Johnny is all highlighted in black. And to me, this stuff has to work in color, I mean, black and white before it ever works in color. And you see the increasing rain. The rain is starting to come down. Some of the natural Dutch tilting here. This is, you know, the waves coming in, the beach. Everything is Dutch tilting because it's a matter of the geography and what's happening. And hopefully you'll notice the big difference between Johnny being silhouetted in black and our priest very open, trying to still give the sense of the wind zooming by them. Okay, you know, this could be considered a neutral shot in many ways, or vertical. But let's move on. Let's show Richard's coloring. You know, we're running very long today. Again, I think it's beautiful. Richard did. This is what I talked about two issues ago, where there is no horizon line, visible horizon line, because the sea is going out, and the atmosphere is there, and it all blends into one. I'm sure you've been to coasts where you see this sort of happen, especially if it's a cold and rainy and misty day. I love what Richard does here with the mist as things go into the background. So here we are. Let's move on now. I'm trying to move a little quicker, not repeat myself. Oops. Okay. Close it on the pair. The priest staring into the young man's face. Next panel, first of four slim vertical frames. Flashback, a boy's naked figure stumbling through the swirling snow. Smoke drifts off his burnt and strangely glowing form. He has short black hair. Panel 15, the young man, hands in pocket, standing against the wind and rain, almost exulting in the storm. Panel 16, flashback, long shot. The smoldering boy stumbling down a quiet road. It is still dark, still moving, still snowing. The boy looks like a ghost. Panel 17, the priest's stance is crumbled. He looks old and frail, cowering before the storm. Panel 18, the young man has very lightly slapped the priest, who flies backwards across the sand under the force of the blow. So I talked to Grant about this, and you know, let's this is the layout, but let's discuss it over the finish. So the idea is that Bates and this priest have actually met before, clearly from the flashback. And perhaps Bates is a little perturbed that this priest saw him at such a weak moment in the past. And if you go back to the Miracle Man books, you could probably find that moment when Bates was not at his best. And this is an untold story. So we have the flashback panels. Now I had a question previously about the showing of time. You'll notice that in the majority of this particular story, I use a lot of these sort of long cinematic horizontal panels, and in trying to convey a more European approach to this, and it's actually an approach that I like more, a big cinematic approach. Here, I wanted these to be sort of staccato beats, right? Boom, 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 right? Because you're going past, present, past, current, past, current. And I wanted the impression to be this is happening very quickly in the mind of the priest as he remembers who this guy who's in front of him is suddenly. So these panels are broken into smaller panels, and Grant even made an allusion to that as well in his description. So here we go. So we've established our camera, right? 180-degree rule, and we've got our camera sort of here. Here's our here's the line we do not want to cross, and our camera is again sort of over Johnny's shoulder. I think one thing you can notice about the layout here, right? My original layout, I had Johnny much larger than the priest. But something about this, the perspective felt all wrong to me, and it makes him feel like he's 10 feet tall versus the priest being 5 feet tall. So I fixed that in the drawing, and I think hands are some of the most expressive tools we could use as artists to even as, if not more so, expressive than faces and body language. But we have all these tools. So Johnny's posture. I did all this research on leather jackets, the reflection, how they break. I did a lot of research on these fisherman's hats, and of course on the Beatle haircut, trying to emulate a young Grant Morrison's face here, and sort of the mischievous, malevolent smile that he wanted on Johnny. We have our lighthouse, right, locked into place, and we have our rein current. Now watch, whenever we're on this side of Johnny, we're looking at the priest. Our rein is naturally, it's going to go in this direction. Once I get sort of over the priest's shoulder, which would be here, or between the priest and Johnny, our rein is going right to left, disconcerting. Here's our bad guy. Here are flashback panels that I would have to rely on Richard for to get a good sense that this is happening at a different place in time. And the idea here, which I don't think I've communicated correctly, or as well as I could have given the time and space that I have. Hold on, just checking. Okay. Is that my thought was that as the priest sees Johnny, he remembers this moment 3 years ago when he was walking in the snowy surf, and he saw that flash of light, and he saw Johnny, and he would now that flash of light, if you remember that panel, was going, left to right, which means that in this particular set, it landed somewhere, I don't know, somewhere around here, which means that Johnny would have been in the past walking up to us in this direction, which he is. Again, hard to see. I failed at this, right? Because you can't really see the background that well, but Johnny is now coming at us in the opposite direction. He's actually coming to us in the past. He's coming up this way, and our priest would be, let's say, standing here, seeing him come at him. So he remembers Johnny Bates, burning and disheveled and in bad shape, walking towards him. He's melting the snow as he's going. Then we're now in the present. He sees the face. He's like, it's that guy. And now here, Johnny would have walked past him, and he's walking now in this direction, so to speak, right? And then we cut back to our priest, and our rein is flowing normally because he's kind of the good guy. So a lot of thought here. The slight slap. This took a long time to get this gesture because I wanted this. This guy is so powerful. He might be able to beat Captain America, maybe. But he's so powerful that just a flick of two fingers could cause a tremendous amount of damage and a tremendous amount of thrust. So here we have a rein going right to left. He's our bad guy. I want you to feel that. By the way, the rein is increasing. Every panel, the rein is getting heavier and heavier. And here, he smacks our priest. Focus on the glasses. That's another thing I want to anchor here. But our priest is now being thrown. Everything, all the action, the speed is going left to right. While you have the disconcerting rein coming in the other direction. And here's the beauty of what Richard Isenoff has done to this page. Our flashback scenes are in this deep sort of ultraviolet blue, and our current scenes are in these sort of muted colors. But watch what Richard does here. See this little speck of red here? He turns something that I tried to make look pretty violent and kind of gross, and he made it really, really gross. So hold on, because it's coming. But the mood, again, is just awesome on Richard's part. Again, no speed lines, but this blood burst and this trail of blood and the movement of the jacket. Hopefully, if I've done my job right, you guys get that sense. The hands conveying the sheer agony of what this must be like. So now, let's move on. All right. Yeah. Where's my script? Okay. From above, the priest is lying, twisted on the tide line. At the end, a long skid mark. He is left in the sand. The sea is coming in around his body. The young man is walking towards him, implacable. Next panel. That's panel 19. 20. The young man walking across the sand. The priest lies in the foreground. 21. Track in towards the young man whose feet are seen to be leaving the ground ever so slightly. 22, the young man is stepping up into the air over the priest's head. 23, the priest staring up in terror, grasping at the cross around his neck. And there you have our dialogue and caption boxes. So this was my original take on this. Again, I was very, very much an overhead shot. Wasn't crazy about it because I think it made both of them feel a little weak. I didn't want Johnny to feel weak, but I think also it'll take away from the subsequent flying scene. Johnny, our priest, I decided to change the shot as well. So let's just go to it. Here we go. So I decided to lower my camera angle, give you a real sense of the distance, give you a sense of where the priest landed, which is this really painful rocky terrain. There's our blood from the flick of the fingers. Glasses there, which I established in the previous panel, and a little bit of trail of blood. There'll be some indents in the sand, and we can't really see the priest's face here. What we can see is that he's sort of holding onto his nose, like, oh man. And now here we have Johnny walking. We have a bit of a Dutch angle. We have our rain coming from right to left. It's trouble, and you can't see the priest. You see some dripping blood. You know it's bad. You know there's some rocks here. So this is a trick and an homage to one of my favorite artists, Barry Windsor Smith. Hang on. Let's see here. There we go. In this particular panel, simply because of a panel that he did in Weapon X, a Wolverine story, where he had someone holding a pair of glasses, and those glasses were magnifying a piece of, I think it was a newspaper article, and it hit two words, and it created the words X-Men within the glasses. So what I did here was, can't see his face, but these glasses that I established are laying on the ground, and we're behind those glasses. And here you can't see the priest's face, but in the glasses you can sort of see, that's the damage that was done. So I actually get almost two panels out of this, because we could see the damage and we could see Johnny flying up. And this is something that to me felt very, very European, by doing this sort of subtle, just lifting up off the ground at this point, right here. Oh, I'm in white. That's why. Here we go. Okay, lifting up off the ground here. You're getting this sort of, it feels almost like a ballet, where he's just starting to step up. And this sense of levitation. It's not a zooming, flying up like Iron Man would, right, with his boot jets and just go poof, right. This is sort of a hovering, slowly climbing, building to that moment. And now we'll go down here, and here's Johnny. We've got our rain. Now remember, every time I change, my camera position, that rain's going to change with the camera position. But now we are putting him in the power position. He is looking upwards. Oh, I keep doing this. He's looking upwards. We're looking upwards. He's in that heroic pose, but he's clearly the bad guy. We've got our rain coming this direction. Johnny is in black. Our priest is open. That blood running down the priest's nose, right? So, I thought, well, that's, this is pretty hardcore, right? He's clearly busted the priest's nose. And what Richard does in color is he really makes it shocking, because he introduces red into the palette here. And it's not just a busted nose, but it's bruising all around the face. It's really it's painful looking, especially when there's been no red added to this world at all. And that's kind of how we got to the scene. And you see that Richard sort of gave me a little bit of a shadow there for the trail, and all the moodiness involved here. And I kind of really dig this shot. And hi to Barry wherever he is. This really helped me out here. So let's move on. All right, we're getting to near the end. Page 8. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Page 8. Young man laughing, hanging in the air as though in a parody of the crucifixion. Lightning is crackling around his outstretched hands. And the next panel, the priest screaming, wielding his cross like a gun without bullets. So I turned this into a multiple panel page. You can see my original layout right here. And let's see here. Hold on, let me get rid of that. Okay. And here's my finished pencils. Rain is getting much, much heavier. Here's Johnny sort of in that mock crucifixion. Johnny's a nihilist. He doesn't believe in God or in anything really, and he's berating the priest for his belief in God, and our priest is in pain. And there's that crucifix again, indicating motion as much as I possibly can. Johnny's jacket indicating the wind and motion, and that right to left disconcerting feeling. We're back on the priest now from Johnny's point of view. And by the way, Johnny's in that power position, right? Our priest is in the lower position. Now we're looking down on our priest. He is clearly not making out very well. You'll see this cross here that I researched extensively. I'd like to get things, as close to some sort of reality as possible. What you can't see here is that I added a Photoshop layer of lightning starting to build in Johnny's eyes. But now our rain is really coming down, right? For the priest, it's coming down left to right. For Johnny, it's our bad guy, right to left. Yes, I know, it's crazy. I thought a lot about this stuff. And here is what that looks like in color. Again, Richard adding some different warmth, warmer tones, redder tones at this point to highlight the cross. He waited for his shot to use these colors. He could have used red and these golds much earlier in the story, but he read the story and then he looked at my art and he made the conscious. And I've never talked to him about this. He just did it because we worked for so long. It's kind of what happens. And he just nailed it here. And like I said, this really, it's the difference between my inks and sort of the red that he adds there. It's incredibly punchy. And really, I could feel the priest's pain, certainly more than I was even when I was drawing it. Now, I broke this up into I wanted this to be a full page shot. So frame 26, a long shot, lightning blasting down, incinerating the priest. The young man head is thrown back in wild glee. So for this one, here's my initial layout. You can see it here. And then I went Photoshop crazy. I drew out this skeleton and then sort of replicated in Photoshop, and you can't see here again, but I've added some lightning bolts in Photoshop. But in color, you get the real sense of the violence, how this is lighting up the entire sky. Everything is just being atomized at this point, and it's coming out of Johnny. And again, using that sort of high contrast feel to him, where there's very, very little, if any, line work at all. It's all sort of shadow against white. Okay, moving right along. We're almost at the end here, gang. We're on to page 10. Page 10, you'll see that there's some radical changes here from what I originally finally came up with. The young man standing over a smoke-charred pile. He's looking down with an inhuman grin, as though inspecting the results of a successful experiment. The next panel, view from the cliffs down to the beach. The young man is walking in midair up towards the camera. Frame 29, long shot down the road as a young man walks off into empty country. The rain falls and leaves a whirl in the wind. And that's kind of where Grant ended it, and I decided to break this into 2 pages. But you'll see even there I changed it. I have here's Johnny sort of landing and reaching for the charred skull, and we have our little Hamlet moment here, and then flying off. As much as I really kind of loved this pose and casual gesture of him just sort of taking off with the wind, I decided I wanted to leave this as our closing shot. I didn't want him walking away into the distance. I wanted him flying away into the distance because he's on his way to London to have the biggest fight in superhero comics history. So I changed this, and I also, sorry, going back here, going back to the timing thing, I felt like these were staccato beats to long beats. And I just didn't want to do the staccato thing here. It didn't feel right to me as a piece of music or a piece of comic book art. So here, I also thought this was a little more horrifying. We see Johnny landing. We know this is Johnny, right? Our rain is now normalized, coming left to right. This is over. This is the new normal. It's Johnny Bates, the charred beach, and the subtle charred remains of what was once the priest. And Grant didn't have this sort of Hamlet in New York moment, but I just thought it was so applicable, because throughout the entire script, Johnny Bates was literally looking at the priest as sort of a clown, as a gesture, and something that maybe he believed in the past and no longer believes in anymore. So there is this sort of little Hamlet moment, and if you can see that even the angle was changed there. I just thought this was a little more powerful to do sort of the up shot as opposed to the over the shoulder shot, or the eye level shot. So a little bit of the heroic up shot for the bad guy. Still some of the smoldering, right? So we've got our rain coming down left to right now, but the smoldering is going with the wind in this direction, giving a sense of motion, trying to give a sense of motion with the remaining, flame residue, whatever maybe that's coming from the skull. And now Johnny looks directly at you or me. I'd say he's looking right at you, because he's coming for you. He's coming for you, London. He's coming for Miracle Man. Showing a little bit of the gruesomeness of the priest. And once he looks at you, our rain is slightly vertical, but still coming right to left. Watch out, world. Here comes Johnny Bates. Richard, again, beautifully rendered this in color. I love the little wisps of steam and smoke that he adds there. Just great stuff. So where do we end up? Where do we end up? Johnny's coming for you. Well, here's our final shot. There's really no dialogue because I took stuff and I added it to this page. I just moved stuff over. But this is the original shot. What I didn't like about this was just too small, too insignificant. Felt a little bit too classic U.S. superheroic, Marvel superheroic. So instead, I got bigger on our skull. And by the way, if you wonder, Grant didn't ask necessarily for the fisherman's hat for Johnny, but the reason I had the fisherman's hat added was because I wanted this moment where Johnny leaves the hat on the skull, which I think is kind of cool. Here's our lighthouse, which you've probably seen on other pages, and I stopped highlighting. But this is more of a vertical. I like the fact that Johnny is not shooting up, but he's sort of floating up. And you just know that he is going to be heading to the next stop, which is going to be London, and it's all going to be coming down around everyone as he and Miracle Man have the fight, the greatest fight of all time. Got some embers, and of course, ending crucially with our rain coming left to right, a sense of the new normal, and the embers going in the opposite direction, causing a little bit of confusion. So let's go to Richard's final colors. There they are. Again, let me get rid of that red here so you guys can see it. So that's kind of my Miracle Man tutorial. I mean, there's a lot more for me to dig into. I love the wisps of smoke, the atmosphere that he adds right here. All this stuff is so cool. And when you work with a collaborator like Richard, it amplifies your work. And when you work with great inkers like Jimmy Palmiotti, Danny Mickey, Kevin Nolan, Tim Townsend, Mark Morales. I work with some really, really, really great, Klaus Janson, Al Williamson. These are inkers that can just take your art to the next level, and I've been very, very fortunate. So now let me see if I can actually make this thing work. And let's see here. Oh, okay, hold on, guys. Bear with me. Boom! Back. Whew! All right. Kind of worked. We still on? We still on. We're going on 2 hours. I don't know if you guys stuck with me or not, but that's a lot of talking on my part. And my battery's doing okay. So I believe we actually had some questions as it's going along. So let me see if I can hit some of these. Let me read them for the first time. Hard to do both. All right, let's see here. Okay, so we got a question here from Jakov Popovic. Hi, so I'm a young aspiring comic writer, artist, and I'd love to work at Marvel someday. However, I'm 16, I'm still in high school. Is there anything I could start doing even now to better my chances? Yes, there is. You write every day, every single day. You want to be a writer? Whether it's comics, whether it's movies, novels, whatever it may be, journalism, you have to write every day, every single day. Now, understand this. By writing, I'm not saying you have to write a story every day. Write a journal every day. It doesn't take long. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it may be, or write longer. You will see that exponentially, you will become a better writer over time. You look back on your other stuff and you'll go, cringy a little bit, but you'll realize that's a good thing, right? Because you'll see the growth.
But it's like anything. I love playing baseball. I wanted to play baseball. I didn't have this. I didn't have quite the skill to be that good at it, but I was okay. But if you want to be a professional athlete, let's say, what do? Let's say you want to be a baseball player. Well, if you want to be a baseball player, you are on the field every single day. You know, you're shagging flies, taking infield, you're in the batting cage, you're doing fielding drills. Everything you need to do is fine. And then you're hitting the gym, right? So you're practicing your craft every single day. And you know why you have to? Because there's another person out there who's doing that. And they want it as badly as you do. So you have to stretch and strengthen those muscles. So you have to write every day, every single day. No excuses, right? None. All you need is pencil and paper, or if you have a computer or a tablet or anything, just write a little bit. Even if it's just a little bit, write a lot. It doesn't have to be a story. It could just be your thoughts every single day. Trust me, you will be a much better writer, and it is truly the road to success. And also experience life, because you know, in order to really have full and rich ideas, in order to create full and rich characters, you have to live life. You have to experience people. You have to experience the world. Sure, there's stuff that we make up, but in order to even make that stuff up properly, it has to be based on something, right? So go out there and experience it all, the good and the bad, because that's what makes all writing great, I think, in the end, especially if you've got to make it up. Let's see what else you have here. All right, I'll put this up. This is simply self-serving. From Comics Misexplained. Can we listen to Joe's music anywhere? I want to hear about his old punk days. I wasn't a punker, but more in the rock kind of new wave era kind of thing. Although I have a huge affinity for punk rock, but maybe when I was like in my 17, 18, it was a little punky, but that wasn't my thing. It was actually the opening music and closing music is a song I composed years and years ago, and maybe I'll change it up somewhere down the road. But thanks. If people want to hear my music, let me know. Maybe we'll delve into that. But yeah, it's kind of a Comic Central thing, and that feels a little self-serving. Not that I'm not self-serving, but this is about you guys. So thanks for asking that. Okay. Great question. Emilio Cabrera, how do you move on if you're stuck on your drawing or ideas for a comic cause? I'm there right now. All right, Emilio, here's the trick. I find this to be true for myself. And when I give people this advice, they tend to come back and say that really, really helped, right? Same goes for writers. Some days it's just not happening. So tell me if any of you have experienced this, right? I remember I was drawing. I'm gonna, again, during my independent days, I was on a huge deadline. I was really, really running behind on my book Ash, and I got up early in the morning. I'm gonna hit this page. I'm gonna kill it today, man. It's gonna be great. And I get to panel 2, and I've got to draw this sort of close up of Ash, and I cannot, for the life of me, get the eyes to line up correctly. I can't get the expression to work, so I'm erasing and I'm drawing and I'm erasing and I'm drawing, and I'm getting incredibly frustrated. And before I know it, I have spent 4 or 5 hours on one panel, and it still didn't come out great. Now, this comes out of years of experience of me beating my head against the wall, experiencing this stuff. And a lot of artists do this too. So I'm going to give you this advice ahead of time. Don't misuse it. Don't abuse it. But it's true. You have to forgive yourself. You have to be very forgiving of yourself in situations like this. Now, what I came to realize was, when I was freelancing especially, I was working 7 days a week because I loved doing it, right? There were no weekends for me. So a Wednesday could have been a Saturday for all I cared. So what I came to was, if I hit that wall where it just wasn't happening, I had to learn to identify it and know that, okay, I'm going to spend 4 or 5 hours on a panel right now. I know that this is that panel. You know what? I'm done for the day. It's Saturday, and I'll go off and I'll go do something else. And then I find that 9 times out of 10, probably more than that, the next day I come back to it with fresh eyes. And because I've forgiven myself, and because I've given myself that breather to just say, that was a weekend day, and now I got to work hard the next day, I find that I was able to hit that idea and that drawing or that whatever I was writing with a fresher intent, less pressure, a clearer mind, whatever it may be. But I forgave myself for it. I said, you know what? I just suck today. Today, I am just terrible. It's not happening. It happens to everybody, professionals, amateurs alike. It doesn't matter who you are, right? We all have good days, we have bad days. So give yourself a weekend day, but don't abuse it, right? Because then you'll be like, well, today's a weekend, tomorrow's a weekend, and before you know it, you're not at the drawing board. You got to work. You got to work. And sometimes when you're seriously on a deadline, you can't even give yourself that. So maybe give yourself an hour, step away, or move on to the next page and come back to that particular page. So that's my advice there. Let's see, we only have a few more here. Okay, E.D. Bass, I'm curious if this is available in print, digital. I'd love to be able to pore over this endlessly. I'm assuming, ED, that you're talking about the comic. I don't know, actually. I'd have to inquire about through Marvel to see if it's available digitally. It's in print. Perfect opportunity to call a retailer that can mail it out to you, right? Why not? I mean, I have my copy right here. This is one of the covers. This is the cover that I did. Again, shameless self-promotion, right? But there were several other covers. I think it was a Gabrielle Del Otto cover as well. Man, Gabrielle's good. Much better than my cover. And that was the black and white cover. There were, I don't know how many versions of it. So thanks for the question, Edie. Let's see. Deborah Arkin asks, what's a Dutch angle? Deborah, if you go back to the beginning of this stream, you'll see that I explain it. Also, if you go back 2 issues to issue 7, I explain it at length as well. So thanks for the question, and thanks for following and paying attention. And one final question here. Do we have one more? Okay. All right. J Blue 68. I have 3 books I've been working on for the past 8 years now, and keep getting writer's block. Any advice? Yeah, I don't necessarily believe in writer's block. I believe in, again, you might have a day where things just aren't happening, as I explained before, but I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I think you might be blocked because maybe you don't have the ending to your story. Maybe you're afraid to finish it. I don't know you, right? But I personally don't believe in it. I've worked with some great writers. I mean, Brian Bendis does not have writer's block. Mark Millar, they don't have writer's block. They just plow through. But I think key to this is knowing the ending of your story, the beginning and ending of your story. Endings are hard. There's a reason I don't write a lot more than I would like to, and that's because I don't want to start a story if I don't know the exact ending. When I did Daredevil Father, I knew the ending of that story before I knew the beginning because I asked a particular question, and the question was because I went around all Marvel editorial asking this question. The old blind man that Daredevil pushed away from the truck that then caused the accident that blinded Matt Murdock. Not Daredevil, Matt Murdock pushed the old blind man. Did we ever go back and revisit that guy? And we never did. So that started something rolling in my head. Like, who is that guy? And what happened to him afterwards, right? I mean, clearly this little kid saved his life. And it just felt like there was a story there. And then that morphed into who that particular character was and the effects he had on people's lives, and is he still around? And if he is, what happens when Matt Murdock and Daredevil go to visit him, and what's that conversation? So that's sort of my process. But honestly, I mean, I think you can talk to a lot of writers. Some writers maybe suffer writer's block, but I think a lot of it is maybe you just need to step away. But this sounds like this is something a little bit chronic that you're going through, right? With 3 particular stories. Do you have your ending? If you don't have your ending, that's probably why you're suffering the block. Are you fearful of what people might think of your writing? Maybe that's what. And I say this because I've come from that position. I've come from that position of I remember being a young songwriter and afraid to play my songs for professional songwriters because what if I suck? Is that just inherent fear? I don't know how old you are or where you are in your writing professionally or not, but those would be my suggestions. And sorry if I'm being blunt, but my other philosophy with stuff like this is that when people ask me for advice, I try not to mess around with just all the niceties. I'd rather be blunt and as well as kind to you, so that you don't waste any time either. And this is really difficult for me to even sort of criticize what you're asking me, because I don't know you. So if we had a conversation, maybe we could get down to what it is. It's a little hard right now, but hopefully maybe I tapped into something, maybe I didn't. So guys, thank you. This has been the longest one so far. My battery is still going. It's going to end any second now, because I know we can't do one of these without technical difficulties. Deep breath. All right, let's talk about next week. So who do we have next week? Let's see. Who would you guys like to see next week? I'll tell you who I'd like to see. Hang on a second. How about on Monday, we got this guy. Yeah, that guy. Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith's going to be on Monday. I am going to warn him ahead of time about his potty mouth, right? But you know for sure, we are going to be talking about some Marvel Knights stuff. We'll be talking about Daredevil. We're going to be talking about stuff that Kevin's doing, chasing, all these movies like Chasing Amy, Clerks, the works. We're going to go over as much of it possible. We're probably going to go over 2 hours too, because man, Kevin can talk, and I love this guy so much. I know you guys do too. There's been no greater advocate in modern times for comic books outside of Stan Lee. No greater advocate for comic books than Kevin Smith. You know, I love this guy with all my heart. I wouldn't be here talking to you right now if not for Kevin. And I know he loves this industry as much as I do. So yeah, Kevin Smith's going to be coming on. I even know who my next guest after Kevin's going to be. I don't have a photo of him right here, but I'll have it on during the Kevin show. So I'm going to have Jimmy Palmiotti, my buddy Jimmy Palmiotti, my old business partner and old Marvel Knights crony. So it's going to be kind of a Marvel Knights episode 1 and 2 on Monday. I'm guessing Jimmy will be on Wednesday. I think Monday is going to be at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock Eastern time, because Kevin's on the West Coast, and that's just how it goes with these West Coast folk. They just don't get up early, man. I don't get it. So thank you again. Love you. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Remember, hang on, let me get it here. Let me find it here. Creators for Comics, hashtag Creators for Comics. Do not forget that to also, check on your local comic shops to see, who's doing business. We love our comic shops, and we're going to be back in those comic shops sooner rather than later, hopefully. And in the meantime, as always, to be continued. And I'll see you guys in the funny books. Mwah. Love you. And here comes the music.
We were kings of Brooklyn.